Talking to Death is released weekly, every Wednesday, and brought to you absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus at tenderfootplus.com or on Apple Podcasts.
Talking to Death is a production of Tenderfoot TV and iHeartPodcasts. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello. Welcome back to Talking to Death. I'm Payne Lindsey. This is my friend Mike. I'm still kind of getting used to these intros. It feels a little bit like I'm on some top 40 radio station and I want to trigger some horn sound or something. I don't know, it just feels like that. Okay, it's too early for that. It sounds kind of cool, but I'm not going to lie, my head hurts today. It hurts bad.
Drake's on his way.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, if that is
It's like the bat signal.
Yeah. Drake's like, oh my God, I got to be on that remix now. God, I wish. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little slow today, you know? It's my birthday. You don't care. I don't even care. But I went out last night and I probably had about 5 too many. Not 1 too many, about 5.
Oh, so 5 total?
No. See, okay. I had a lot. It's kind of messed up because I feel like when it's your birthday and you're out with your friends, they always try to get you sick, basically. They don't even care about your well-being.
Well, they want you to have fun.
But like part of it's like they want to see you like, look at you, birthday boy. And you're like, come on, man. So of course they were giving me shots and stuff. But I'm like, I don't even do shots anymore. I can't. Like there was a phase of my life where I did Fireball. I can't even look at Fireball. Saying it makes me feel sick. But all that to say, you know, I'm here on my birthday for you guys. Also because I'm contractually obligated to be here. Kind of. This is new to me, this intro, outro thing, but it's kind of fun. I like just kind of shooting the shit.
It's weird. It'll get easier as we go, but
I think so.
It feels a little strange right now.
It does. Awkward silence. Run the horn.
Yeah, well,
run it. Come on. Cue it up. God, that'll wake you up. It's really good for your hangovers, just that sound.
Yeah, you should throw on these headphones.
Blaring in your ears. Yeah, but I'm here. I'm a trooper. I was taken advantage of last night to the amusement of my friends with all the shots that they gave me. And I'm glad that you guys had fun. But I'm paying the price today. I think this is the first year where officially I don't care at all about my birthday. I no longer care about my birthdays. I turned 36, which there's just nothing special about that.
No.
And there'll always be someone who's 46 who says, yeah, well, you just wait. Well, I don't care. Right now, I'm 36, and there's nothing to really brag about. I'm not young. An old person would say I am young, but I'm not too old yet. It's like, okay, 30's one thing. Even 35 was like, we're getting there. 36, I feel like 36 through 40, bullshit.
Yeah.
40 is like the big one, but 36 through 39, no one cares. I don't care.
I haven't liked birthdays since 25. I wasn't even looking forward to 30. What do you get at 30?
At
or
30,
35?
You don't get shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gotten shit.
Yeah. There's no like, oh, you made it. You made it to your 30s, right?
Yeah.
No one. It's 40 is like the big one, like, right? That's like a kind of a milestone.
Yeah, because now you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because 30 was like, okay, that's cool. I've been in my 20s for 10 years. Now I'm 30. 31's like, oh, wow, I'm like in my 30s kind of. And then 31 through 34, the same thing. 35 is like, okay, I split the difference now. Now it's like, okay, now I'm just basically 40, but not yet. So I could do without celebrating it. It's fine. If you're offended that I don't like my 36-year-old self, just know that in 10 years, I'll be looking at this and saying, you're an idiot, Payne, because now you're 46 and you didn't appreciate it when you were 36.
I don't think you'll be watching this in 10 years.
Right.
Maybe, but
right.
It'd be
I'm going to watch them every day for the next 10 years.
Like remembering the good old days.
The good old days. God, that sounds scary. I don't like that at all. But you might not be wrong, you know? Who knows?
Well, it's a good one to watch, though.
But, you know, I'll stop talking about my birthday. No one cares. I don't even care. But that's a fact. It's true. Ironically, I got you a gift for my birthday.
What?
Yeah, I got you a gift.
Have I seen this?
No, you haven't.
Oh.
I'm just that good of a friend.
Is it that Gatorade right there?
Yeah. Do you want to finish it?
There's
There's only like a little bit of mouthwash.
to.
There's not a lot, just a little bit.
I actually do want it.
I'm actually like, I'm excited to give you this, but I'll be honest, they just didn't fit me. But they're dope.
Thank you.
They're dope though.
A hand-me-down. Thank you.
Open them up because that's the wrong brand of the box.
Oh. Did you wear these?
Yeah, so I wear a size 11.
Oh, these are sweet.
And I wear a size 11 definitively in all Nikes.
Yeah,
but for some reason, these ran small. They're going to kill my toes.
You're a big Nike guy. These are cool.
They're cool, though. They're plain Jane white sneakers, but they're not the boring ones. They're like hey, where'd you get those ones, though? Everyday sneaker.
I got you.
These boys. So I'm too lazy to take it back. I've probably already missed the deadline, so
probably
here you go.
Oh, thank you. You got me one.
Yeah.
Next year I get the other one.
Yeah. I keep the other one as collateral.
Well, thank you, Payne. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Such a nice guy on your birthday.
What'd you get me?
I was going to hand you my hoodie that I took off
Okay,
earlier.
I don't want your clothes, bro.
I
got you new shoes. I don't want your hand-me-downs.
It's my favorite hoodie, though.
I'm just going to give it back to you.
Okay.
Because you're going to be like, I'm cold. I'm like, all right, then. God, dude, if I can't. It's too sharp. Mm-hmm. Someone is in their car right now like, God, dude, we get it. Turn it down. Don't do it again.
Oh, I'm going to make it way lower and edit.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. If you're listening on the way to work, good morning. Good morning. If you don't know, Talking to Death comes out weekly. It comes out every Wednesday for free. But if you want to listen to the show ad-free, you can do that by signing up for Tenderfoot Plus on Apple Podcasts. If you do that, you also get ad-free episodes of a ton of our other shows. You actually get a whole bunch. And you can do that on Apple Podcasts or just go to tenderfootplus.com. You don't have to. You'll still get it for free. But if you want to give us $5, we'll take it.
Yeah, and you're sick of ads.
And you're supporting. It's like
and you don't have to listen to ads anymore.
Right? Tenderfoot Plus, if that's your thing, go do it. We definitely appreciate the support if you do. There's also a video version of this podcast that comes out every week as well, 2 days later on Friday on YouTube. And you can easily get to the YouTube channel by just going to talkingtodeathpodcast.com. The video version, which is the same audio, will drop every Friday, 2 days after the audio version comes out. And maybe you're watching this right now and it feels redundant, but I'm assuming that you're listening to it. So, yeah, we spent a lot of time filming some of this stuff, and it is kind of cool to see these interviews in person, which we've kind of gone out of our way to do. Everything's all over Zoom these days, which, I mean, it was cute for a little bit,
it's
pandemic. Like, oh yeah, work from home. I mean, I get wanting to work from home if you work for a company, or just working at home in general is just nicer. But
sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm like, why am I doing chores right now? I need to finish this YouTube video to get this out.
Like, yeah, they've smartened up a little bit though. I think we all know, we don't want to admit it, but we don't work as well at home. We just work more leisurely. There's no accountability.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of guy who's like, hey, if no one knows what I'm doing, then I'll just do it whenever. I'll procrastinate to infinity.
Well, you're also the one who's in your house in your underwear, and aren't you supposed to dress for the job you want or something like that? Isn't that some kind of saying? So
that's the job I want. I want the job I can do in my underwear. So I dress for the job I want every day. This would be a great segue to like an underwear commercial or something, but we don't have one. Let me see. What else do I need to tell you guys? If you're enjoying this show, which I hope you are, if you could do us a huge favor and rate and review the podcast. It is annoying. I know. I'm even bad at doing this. I'm the worst at it. Takes 30 seconds max, but it really does help the visibility of our show, the whole algorithm, whatever you want to call it. The more reviews and ratings we get, it kind of boosts it in the charts and more people can see it. There's a billion podcasts these days, so any little bit helps. And also, we want to know your feedback and what you like about the show. And to incentivize this, because I personally would be like, cool, yeah, I'll do that, and just never rate and review it. To incentivize this, I have a little contest I've thought of. I'm going to give some free shit away, because everyone loves free shit. And if you rate and review Talking to Death on Apple Podcasts, you might win some free shit. So here's how this will work. Go leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts for Talking to Death. Preferably a nice one if you want to win. You can do whatever, but we're not going to pick the 3-star one.
If it's a mean one, still give us 5 stars.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, you can be a dick if
say
it's
whatever
5
you want.
stars. Yeah, you can say, I hate you, 5 stars.
I hate Mike.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mike sucks.
Yeah.
Payne sucks too, but not as much. 5 stars. I'll take it. If you do this, we will pick a random winner and we'll read your username in a couple weeks on this same intro segment of a different episode. And you're going to win an all-inclusive paid, just kidding. Everyone's like, let's
the
go.
Bahamas.
Yeah, like to the Bahamas. No, we're not that cool. But you will win a podcasting recording setup that's actually nice, that I've assembled myself. The Sony headphones, which are pretty nice. These are some of my favorite ones. We'll get you
wearing these right now.
the RE20 mic, which is one of my favorite mics, to be honest. Very nice.
Your second favorite mic, right?
Honestly, I still like it. Like, this is the
no,
Shure,
I mean,
but...
after...
Oh, my God, Mike. It's killing me, bro. The puns are killing me. And this little nifty guy. Basically, it'll be an entire kit for you to record your own podcasts. I remember back in 2016 when I was trying to make a podcast for the first time. And I say trying because I didn't know what to get. I just thought, like everything else in the world, I would just Google podcasting starter pack, starter kit, right? Nothing. It was like complicated websites that pointed you to this microphone and that one and this USB thing and this converter. And I'm like, what's happening? Then I simply learned that it's just basically a microphone and something to record into. That's it. But now it's funny because I was in Best Buy not that long ago, and it was literally a podcasting starter kit.
A bundle.
Starter pack, right?
Yeah. Black Friday bundle.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, here we go. It felt like a little Tykes, like McDonald's kit or something. You know what I'm
Learn to
talking about?
cast.
Yeah, you're right. Learn to work, because you're going to do that later in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, a nice one, I hope, then you'll be eligible to win this kit, and we'll read a username aloud on the intro of an episode in a couple weeks. And on top of that, if you're interested, if you do win, I will send you this podcast kit, and we will Zoom you, if you want, and do a little segment on one of these intros. No obligation to. If you say any, messed up shit, we're going to probably cut it. But it could be fun. I don't know.
Yeah. And with this kit, how many of the podcasts you've made do you think you've used something very similar to this kit?
Oh, that's a good question. This will be legitimately what I use. It's the real deal stuff. It's not. I've been using the RE20 mic for years, all the Up and Vanish seasons, pretty much almost all my shows. These headphones are my favorite. The Zoom H6 recorder is super nifty. I've used that in the studio to in the field, on the ground, in person, recording that way. And you'll have all this stuff to pretty much make your own podcast if you wanted to. So I'm giving back the podcast starter pack that I wish existed when I got into podcasting. Just, paying it forward. But seriously, please rate and review the show. It will help us a lot, and we'll appreciate it. Today's guest is super fun. He's an amazing guy. His name is Jeff Foxworthy. He is a legendary comedian. This guy is one of the OGs in the comedy world. I'm talking about for decades, he was crushing it, and he's still relevant today. He literally sold several multi-platinum comedy albums.
It's crazy.
That's like a thing of the past now, right? He's been crushing it for decades. He had his own show, the Jeff Foxworthy Show. He had another very successful show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, which was hilarious. He's a super nice guy. He's hilarious in person. I actually met Jeff several years ago in 2017, I believe. It was right after the first season of Up and Vanished, which was my very first podcast. Right after the season ended, we did a live tour with the show across the country, and which was a wild experience. And it was the first show of the tour, and it was Atlanta, where I'm based. And I was very nervous. All my family were there, and my grandma's lined up with my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters. Next thing you know, Jeff Foxworthy sits down next to my grandma. And my family all knew who he was because they grew up watching this guy and totally stole the show. No, it was amazing. I got off stage and my grandma's like ecstatic, telling me about how she was talking to Jeff the whole time. And he's a huge fan of Up and Vanished. Honestly, it was just very flattering to me. I was like, oh my God, a famous person likes my stuff?
It's insane.
Like he listened to this? Like that still kind of hurts my brain a little bit. Since then, we've chatted over the years, and he's continued to listen to a lot of my other true crime podcasts. And very recently, we actually finally got to sit down together one-on-one and just chop it up. And I'm telling you, this guy is funny as hell. I was having an absolute blast, and I think you will too. I just want to thank him again for being such a nice guy. I really think you'll enjoy this episode. So here it goes, episode 3 with my friend, Jeff Foxworthy. God, that hurts. I remember my parents cracking up to your joke, you might be a redneck if. My dad's from South Georgia. He's from Albany. I mean, that's their shit.
Albany,
right? Yeah. Not Albany.
Other people would call it Albany.
Yeah.
But we call it Albany.
Albany. Yeah. How that started, why that is.
No I in
No
it.
one knows.
Doesn't matter.
I want to know, from your perspective, what is the 2023 modern day redneck?
I don't think it's changed. Back when I first, let me back up a little bit. So when I first started doing stand-up, I was going to New York a lot. And the only advice I would kind of get up there was guys were like, yo, Jeff, like, I don't want to hurt your freaking feelings, but you need to take some voice lessons so you can lose that stupid accent you got. And I'm like, okay, well, where I come from, you have the stupid accent.
Supposed to say, you have an accent too.
And I don't know why, but I dug my feet in. I'm like, well, at least a quarter of the country talks like me. I'm not going to lose my accent. I mean, I grew up hunting and fishing, so I'm going on stage. I'm wearing jeans and cowboy boots. I'm driving a pickup truck around the country, doing gigs, and they were always kidding me. They were like, "Oh, Foxworthy, you're nothing but an old redneck from Georgia." And so one night I was playing in Michigan, right outside of Detroit, and after the show, it was in November, and I was like, "Dang, I wish I was sitting in a tree in the morning." Yeah, because I bow hunt, and they were like, the same thing. Foxworthy, you're just old redneck from Georgia. Well, the club we were playing in was attached to a bowling alley that had valet parking. And I said to them, if you don't think you have rednecks in Michigan, go look out the window. People are valet parking at the bowling alley. Whew. And I, Payne, I wasn't smart enough to think, oh, it's going to be a hook or a book or something. I just thought, maybe that's funny. And I went back to the hotel and I wrote 10 ways to tell. Mm-hmm. And I went back the next night, and as I was doing them, people weren't only laughing, they were pointing at each other. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. Uh-huh. And, if I can write 10, can I write 50? If I can write 50, can I write 300? And I ended up, I had like 300 or 400 of them, and I sent it to, I was turned down by the first 14 publishers I sent it to.
Really? What'd they say?
They were just like, no, we're not interested. And the 15th publisher I sent it to, the guy called me in for a meeting. He said, "Yeah, this is kind of funny." He said, "I think we could do it. How does $1,500 sound?" And I was dead quiet because I thought he was asking me for $1,500, which I didn't.
That's when you know it's a good deal.
And then he's like, "No, we'll pay you." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, you got a deal. You're going to pay me." And I remember saying to him, "How many books do you think we'll sell?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "I bet we sell 5,000 of them." And I think we sold 4.2 million copies or something.
Damn.
So every time I would see him after that, I'm like, I'm glad you don't know anything more about the book business than I do. So that's how all of that kind of started. And so in the press, they would say, well, what's the definition of it, of redneck? And I would say, well, it's kind of a glorious absence of sophistication. And by that, my dad worked at IBM, but my dad would come home, pop a beer, and he could entertain himself watching the Bug Zapper. I mean, he'd just sit there and go, oh, that's a big one right there. You know, I mean, it was like
never got old.
Very simple-minded. And so I said, you know, Elvis had $1 billion. He had televisions on the ceiling with shag carpet on and he's shooting at the televisions. I mean, that's redneck. You don't. It doesn't have anything to do with how much
redneck,
money you've got, right?
So when you first met all these other fellow comedians when your career was starting out, people were, you know, dogging you for your accent. What was the turning point? Do you remember like a time where, you know, maybe you proved some of these people wrong or something, or you realize that, hey, despite, you know, I'm going to be myself and do this, but now it's working and it's successful?
Well, you know, even to this day, like when young people come up and they say, what should I do? I say, do you. Don't try to do Nate Bargatze. Don't try to do Jim Gaffey. You talk about the things you know and the things you do. And even back then for me, it was like, I can't, if I pretend to be cool, I'm not going to pull it off. I'm not cool. So, but I was very fortunate because I found kind of the template for what worked for me. And that was, I just figured if I thought something, or if my wife said something, or if my family did something, I was going to just trust other people were thinking and saying and doing the same things. I did a joke on the last special. I said, fact of life, out of all the cereals, Captain Crunch is the most time intensive. Here's what I'm talking about. If you eat it too soon, after you pour the milk on, you will rip the roof of your mouth to shreds. You wait too long after you pour the milk on, and the captain will put a film on your teeth a wire brush can't get rid of. But I just had that thought one time. It's like, what the hell is this film that Captain Crunch gives you if you let it sit too long?
Yeah.
That was a thought I had. So I just trust that thought enough to throw it out there. And now people are laughing. I'm like, oh, I'm not the only person to ever think that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my creative process, I guess.
You'd think with Captain Crunch, like, as many chemicals as probably in there already, just add a few more just to let it sit longer in the milk.
It's like there's such a fine line on Captain Crunch because if you go too early.
Do they know this? They should. They do now.
I bet they do. I bet they've talked about it. Yeah.
Have they sent you like a bunch of boxes of it yet?
Nothing. Got nothing.
Of the new recipe?
Got nothing out of it.
Damn. You've been doing this for a long time. You said 40 years, which is, I mean, that's impressive. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. Most comics do stand up so they can get it into TV or movies. It's like a springboard, and then they don't do
Did you
stand
want to
up.
do this?
To me, this was always the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
I've done TV and movies. I've even enjoyed doing those things. But to me, this was, if you put a gun in my head and said you can't do but one thing, it would always be stand-up.
What makes you want to do that?
God, I don't know. There's just, for one thing, it's like a woman you can't figure out now. Like if you laid carpet for 30 years, if that was your job, you would know, hey, when I'm in the corner, this is how I do a corner. When I get to the stairs, this is how I do the stairs. After 40 years, I still don't know what they're going to laugh at. So if I'm working on new stuff and I always write stuff on note cards, and then I'll go down to the club on a Tuesday night and try it out. If I put a star beside it, meaning I think this is going to kill, it almost always dies. It's a big turd.
You just personally like this one the most.
I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
But you would think after 40 years, I would know what they're going to laugh at and what they're not going to laugh at.
So what do you make of that?
Sometimes I think, oh, this is stupid, and I throw it out there, and they're snotting on themselves, and you're like, really? But that makes it fascinating to me that I can't. It's like a woman you can't figure out. It's like,
Yeah.
Crap. That's
So
what
that keeps you like that challenge then.
I do.
Clearly.
Yeah, that's what makes it interesting.
You think it's mostly because of, people are evolving and things are changing, or is it that, you never really feel completely certain about what it is you're writing until you execute and see what happens? Or both?
Yeah, I think that's a lot. Seinfeld said one time, it's like every night it's like walking on a tightrope over the fire. There's some weird thing within us that we thrive on that. I mean, it's like as a hunter, I bow hunt because I want to do it the hardest way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest way to do it, but I feel like if I could pull it off doing that, then I've done something. And creatively, like I tell my musician friends, I said, if you write 4 hits, you're going to play till you're 90 years old because people are always going to come to hear those 4 songs.
Absolutely. Yep.
They may like your other music, but they want to hear those 4 songs. And comedy's the exact opposite. If, like in the old days when I would do a CD or an album or whatever, or if I did a special, people would go, oh, that was funny. What do you have that's new?
Yeah.
So they don't want to hear the greatest hits. They want to hear the new stuff. And crap, it gets hard. I mean, you can't say, hey, I'm just going to go in there and do this bit from 20 years ago because they've heard it. They want something new.
How'd you get used to having to keep going back at it again and try to make something better? Because you clearly have done this throughout your career. Not everyone's capable of doing that or wants to do that. But how did you keep coming back to the table, the drawing board, and putting out something else and trying something different?
I mean, there was always a work ethic, I guess, to it. It's like, can I do it again? Can I do it again? And like comics are weird. Comics are probably not like people. I think most people think they would be goofballs. Like somebody said to me one time, "Oh, I'd love to go to a party with you." I said, "You'd be so disappointed because you think I'm going to be standing in the middle of the room making everybody laugh." I said, "But in reality, I'm the guy standing in the corner watching other people and creating something creating a story in my mind off of what I'm hearing and seeing."
Is that how you are today still? I mean, is that how you really are in real life?
Yeah. And I think most comics are like that. I mean, you've got a few that would be in the middle. But Bob Newhart said one time, he said, we're like magpies. We sit on the edge of the gutter on the house and we just watch. And when we see something shiny we like, we fly down and we get it and we come back and put it in our pile. Yeah. And whether it's a combination of words or an imitation of the way somebody walks or an observation about somebody's dress. And that's what we do is we're observers. Most of us are very curious, want to know stuff, big readers. In most comics, I know, can talk about a lot of subjects because they're just interested, which is probably, how I got interested in this genre that you do. Mm-hmm. Is back in those early, I did 8 years in a row. I did 500 shows a year, at least 500.
How do you even do that? There's not even that many days.
Yeah, but you're like, if you're in New York, you're doing 2 or 3 places on a Friday night, 3 or 4 places on Saturday night. If you're playing at a club somewhere, you might have 2 or 3. So I was literally on the road just all the time. And this is way before cell phones, way before iPads. And so
you were a missing person the whole time.
I was a missing person, but I read. I would read 2, 3, 4 books a week, and I think the first one I ever read in this genre, I was watching something on the news about Ted Bundy, and then I'm in the airport bookstore, and there's the book The Stranger Beside Me, and I read the first Bundy book, and then I was hooked.
Why were you so intrigued by that?
The fact that he was so invisible. Yeah. That he got away with that.
Like, how did he pull this off?
I've always wondered. It's like what craziness is in me that I like true crime so much.
Right.
It's like if I
What have you found out?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think, like I used to say as a comic, that everybody's family is crazy. That everybody,
I think that's
even the ones
definitively true at this point.
You look at and you think, oh God, that's a great family. They're
It's
not.
like, no, they're just as crazy as yours.
They're really good at covering it up.
Yeah, they make it look cute on the outside.
So
but
I would
crazy.
always tell people, here's my advice. Every year, at least once a year, go to the fair. Just so you'll feel better about your own family. Because you get to the fair and you start looking.
I have a really nice family.
You start looking around and you're like, hell, we're all right.
Man, you know those rides they have there too, which I don't know why we've just put up with this forever. They pack those things up and they take them somewhere else.
Yes.
They're the scariest
With
rides on earth.
no certification, no training to run the ride.
Yeah.
The indication it's a good ride. The only two places on the planet where vomit are the indication of a good time is outside the fraternity house and outside the ride at the fair.
Yeah.
It's like you're at the
they're
fair and
having
there's
fun.
vomit.
They might
You're
as well.
like,
Yeah.
hey, let's do this one. But, But you see these people at the fair and you're like, oh my God, where do these people live the rest of the
where
year?
have they been hiding this whole time?
Like they crawl out.
They live in this county? Yeah.
And I think there's something about true crime because everybody, we all beat ourselves up. And then you hear about a guy that cut 20 people's heads off and you're like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm pretty good guy. I'm a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
So I think there's that component of it. I get fascinated. It's like, I think I would like to be a detective.
Really?
If I wasn't a comic.
Well, you said you already kind of, you're a guy in the room at a party who's observing, right? So you're clearly, looking at human nature or personality and trying to figure out people and why they tick or something to a degree.
Well, it's like when I listen to a podcast, when it begins, a lot of times I'll put it on pause and go, all right, what would I do first?
Mm-hmm. What if you murder somebody?
Huh? No. If I'm the cop and they find here's the though we all have thought of that sometimes.
I'm about to say
if I had to get rid of somebody,
put your phone away.
How would I do it? Yeah. But no, it's like when you walk into the ice cream shop and there's 3 people dead, and I sit there and I'll hit pause and go, what would I do? What would I do first? How would I figure this out? So. I think there's that component of it. There's a justice component of it because I love justice. I don't like seeing people, especially innocent people, getting screwed over.
Yeah,
and that's probably from growing up in hateful Georgia on the wrong side of the tracks. Where it's like I've always kind of had a heart for the underdog guy, and so I just think it's a lot of things. But. Gosh, if left to myself, it's like people always want to see behind the curtains. If you come on the road with me, people are like, what do you do during the day? I'm usually sitting in my hotel room watching ID or something, or forensic files. Yeah. I'm like, what is wrong with me that this is entertaining?
I mean, so you said that you were reading books on the road.
Yeah.
And that was kind of your first, I guess, into true crime.
Well, we didn't have podcasts.
Yeah.
You had 3 TV stations.
But there were true crime books about someone like Bundy.
I remember one time I was working in Chicago, I think at the Funny Bone in Naperville, and I was working with a real funny guy named Mark Roberts from the Midwest. And at the time, I was reading, I can't even remember the name of the book, but it was the Ed Gein. And so we're... you're staying in a comedy condo. We're probably making $300 or $400 a week.
Yeah.
And so we're walking to lunch somewhere, and I'm gotten to the good part of the book. So I'm walking with Mark down the sidewalk, but I'm like, Mark, you got to hear this. So it's like, okay, when cops went into his house, they found 8 soup bowls made out of human skulls. They found a belt made out of nipples. They found the chairs in the dining room were made out of bones and human skin. And I remember Mark, he goes, it sounds almost like a segment on the TV show. It's like, Gein, Crafts with Geen. Okay, today we're going to make a living room set.
You made it sound so nice.
We're going to make a living room set out of your Aunt Phyllis, but I think sometimes, all right, Jeff, you have bad thoughts. It's like, no, I don't look at somebody and think, their skull would make a really good soup bowl.
Right.
So
but if you did, would you tell me?
I would.
You would?
Yeah, no, I don't think that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Well, that's good, though.
That's like a depravity that's like, where does that start?
And I think we're curious about that,
Well,
right?
but
how
there's
can one do that, right?
How can somebody do that? B, where do they have that thought?
Yeah, like where does this come from?
The thought going from going,
yeah.
You know what? Make a good. See,
How do you get there?
It borders really close to comedy
because it's so extreme.
It is so extreme.
Yeah,
but that's kind of what comics are. Truth tellers. Comics. It's our job to hold stuff up and go, why do we do this? Why does this happen? Why? Mm-hmm. And there's something about that going. Why the hell would you look at somebody and think, I'll make a soup bowl out of your skull?
Right.
Where does that thought come from?
Yeah. I feel like there's a fine line, even just in my career as a podcaster, I've thought about this a little bit, where if I'm, deep investigating an unsolved murder or something, and I'm, kind of getting in the mind of this, perpetrator or something, or this person of interest, I start to see this sort of weird fine line between like the good guy and the bad guy or something, where my own curiosity about how he would think or what he would do if it made sense, trying to make sense of it in some way, and what he's doing, it's like we're just on different sides of.
And sometimes it's a really fine line.
Yeah.
I mean, like go back to the Tara Grinstead thing. Mm-hmm. That's just probably two guys in a drunken moment making a bad decision.
100%.
That
Yep.
escalates like a snowball down a hill.
Yep.
Now, so let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. So from your side of it, when you start pulling that thread, you have no idea if there's going to be a satisfactory end at the end of it.
Not at all.
Does that, as you're going through it, do you think, oh crap, this may end up being nothing?
You definitely have those moments of, it's maddening. I'll put it that way. It's as a storyteller, innately, that is maddening to not be in control of the ending in that way.
Yeah.
But it also propels me
a joke
to
without
get that ending.
like a joke without a punchline.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing the whole setup, but yeah.
Yeah, I've learned over the years that if I can get enough things lined up and avenues to go down, I can see some sort of ending that will be satisfactory at the bare minimum. If I've become convinced that these individuals did this, then I can do as much as I can to prove that.
Well, I think what you accomplished in that story probably propelled podcasts so far, because then people that were listening were like, hell, I might be able to be part of the solution to this.
Yeah.
But did you ever have trepidation as, hey, I'm poking a hornet's nest here and this might backfire on me?
Oh, 100%. When I first started, I was like, this is pretty scary. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I poking around some unsolved murder case? Yeah, the people that did this
may just drive by and shoot me going down the road.
Yeah, but in the headspace I was in, though, I felt like I had nothing to lose in my life at that point. My mom would probably be like, yeah, your life. I'm like, yeah, Mom, but like my life's not going so well right now, right? I felt like a failed artist or something.
Okay.
And so I really kind of was willing to take that risk. It got the most serious once the arrests were made, because I had a choice then to either hang it up and just let it happen, or keep investigating this now that I have two prime suspects to look into. And I decided to keep going, and I doubled down again. And we learned a lot more about what really happened. And that was a conscious decision that was probably the scariest, because now law enforcement was, stay out of my way, right? Thanks, but go away now.
Stay out of my way, even though the work you were doing kind of got them to the point of being able to make the arrest.
Yeah, like we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I've said this a few places, but all the years later when they finally had the trial, Ryan Duke was found not guilty. And I was really just blown away that in the 5 years after these arrests, they did really no other work to convict this guy. They really just kept the same exact narrative, like they were too stubborn about it. And every detail that we brought up in the podcast and Up and Vanished that kind of poked a hole in it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, that was for you guys to look at and consider.
And run with this.
I'm not trying to, damage your case, but that's exactly what the defense did, was use that kind of information that they could find on their own too.
Yeah.
Right? It was just the truth.
Yeah. I mean, yours is a little bit, at least as a comic, I have a little more control of how something ends.
Totally.
While we both love a story, I get to lead mine more than yours kind of leads you.
Yeah, I think that there's probably two different types of pressure because, to me, that's one of the most maddening parts about it. But I would imagine for a comedian, the pressure to get up here and make you laugh. Huh. Or do you even look at it like that? Is it still like that to you? Or are you just going to do your thing and you're just going to let it be what it is?
I think you have to have a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. You have to have... I remember one night, I'd probably been doing it 2 or 3 years, and I was on stage in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And just for a split second, I had the thought, what makes you think what you have to say is more important than the other 300 people in this room?
Wow.
And then I immediately went, you need to lock that in the basement.
You need to go ahead and delete that.
You're not going to be able to do this. No. So I don't think I've ever... Now it's like, you and I could be sitting here like this, and there could be 50,000 people out there. Mm-hmm. And if somebody came in and said, Jeff, you're on, I'd be, okay, I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it now.
Yeah.
But that's probably... from having some success doing it. In 40 years, God, if you're still scared. Though I know guys like that. I know guys that have been doing it 20 or 30 years and they still throw up before they go on.
Wow.
And I'm like, crap, find something else to do.
So you had 40 years to get a new job.
Yeah.
You must really like this.
So what do you think it is that makes people so interested in true crime?
I think it's the curiosity. I think that's
the curiosity of why somebody would do that, or
mm-hmm. I think it's different for everybody, but generally speaking, the curiosity as to why someone would do that, because it's just unfathomable. Like, how could your brain go there to do something so wrong? And then also maybe from a preventative measure of, if this was some wolf in sheep's clothing and he was out here doing this for years undetected, right? Some Ted Bundy type guy.
Yeah.
What were the signs of that, right? Like, how could I spot something like that, even if he's not a serial killer? What if he's just a bad dude? And how do I, what can I learn from this?
I think there's some of that in all of us that are like, because we want the bad guy to look like the bad guy.
Of course. It's easier that way.
I think it's easier for my generation over my children. We knew bad guys wore black and white striped suits and that black mask over their eyes. That's how you knew somebody was a bad guy.
Every time, right?
Every
time. See him running around.
If the guy had on the black and white striped suit and the mask over his eyes, he was a bad guy.
Big bag with a big dollar sign on it. Yep.
But I think there's part of us that's like, all right, how do I avoid this happening to me?
Yeah.
But there's also part of us, I really think, that wants to solve the puzzle.
Oh, for sure. The puzzle of what? What puzzle do you mean, though?
How do you catch these people?
Yeah.
And I was thinking this morning, knowing I was coming to talk to you, I'm like, holy cow, the cops in the 50s and 60s or the 30s and 40s, that didn't have fingerprints, that didn't have DNA.
You were getting away with everything.
How did they solve a case?
They didn't.
Well, there was a guy down there, he looked a little bit like him. Hang him,
Yeah,
I mean,
you're like, wait,
didn't have a whole lot of proof.
Oh my God. No, it's kind of hard to look back and imagine that. I mean, these days, I feel like it's a lot harder to get away with murder.
Oh,
a lot harder.
I was riding with a buddy the other day, and he asked me out of the blue, he's like, all right, if you were going to kill somebody, we've
Always
all had that
comes up
conversation.
eventually one day.
He goes, how would you do it?
Yeah.
And I said, well, the hard thing nowadays is there's cameras everywhere.
Everywhere.
You know, aside from riding down the road and popping somebody walking down the side of the road with a gas can, I don't know that you.
Yeah.
There's what do you do? But
Yeah.
Think about the cops that solve cases before fingerprints, before DNA, before cameras, before phones that tracked our every movement.
Yeah. You got to be very conscious. I mean, you're probably being recorded even when you don't think you are. I mean, every house in the neighborhood's got a Ring camera.
Yeah.
There's just stuff everywhere. I don't know where you're not susceptible to
And
that.
yet, people are still doing bad crap.
And they're still getting away with that shit.
Yeah, and still getting away with it. But I almost think now the ones that get away with it, it's just they're incredibly lucky.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not some genius out there.
No, there's
dumb luck.
yeah, it's absolute dumb luck.
Yeah, try that again. Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I was recalling some of the stuff you did back in the day, and I remember the "Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader" show, and I just thought this morning, I go, you know what? I'm not. I'm not smarter than a fifth grader, I think. At least not the ones on that show. I mean, are those the smartest fifth graders on earth? Or
No,
what?
we did a nationwide search, and they wanted fifth graders with good personalities that were smart. That wasn't like they were going around going, we want the genius kids. But it's like when Mark Burnett called me about that. He said, would you, he's got that English kind of, that Australia. He said, would you be interested in hosting a game show? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I said, it's too cheesy. I don't want to do a game show. Because I was picturing Wink Martindale, or something. And
Big Mike with the...
yeah. Win, lose, or draw. And I asked him, I said, what's the premise of the show? Mm-hmm. He said, adults taking an elementary school test for a shot at $1 million. And I just started laughing. I said, that's stinking brilliant.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to think they can do it. If I'm like, hey, I'll give you an elementary school test, you're like,
I'd be scared.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And you realize very quickly, it was like, when's the last time at one point, when we were doing rehearsals, I'm like, all right, why is it that my brain kept all the lyrics to the Gilligan's Island theme song, but it deleted everything about triangles? Because there was a question about a isosceles triangle, and I'm like, oh, I knew that at one point in my life, but I have no idea what an isosceles triangle is now.
There's not enough room in there for that kind of stuff, unless you're an engineer, right?
You can only store
Have you ever had
so
to use that, though, in your life?
No.
Do you even know what it is today? I don't, personally.
The what?
Isosceles triangle.
No. Like the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah. I know the word, don't know what that is.
I asked Siri, I'm like, what's the Siri was like, you have a pie in your ear end? I don't even know the Pythagorean theorem.
That's not pi, though, right? It's not.
No.
We're going to cut this. See, we're definitely not smarter than fifth graders.
And if it was, what is pi?
I know it's 3.14, and it goes a lot longer than that.
A lot longer.
No clue what else it is. I know it's a number.
And how does it relate to the equation?
No idea.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
I know.
That's why that show worked. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because they didn't have a problem with giving away the money. They would come to me before the show, and they were like, "This lady's really smart. We might be giving away $1 million today." And she'd go out on a second grade grammar question.
No, it's a brilliant show, and yeah. So you were quickly like, nah, no game show host to.
When he told me that, I'm like, because I thought, well, I can be funny without being mean. I mean, I didn't want to make fun of people, but when somebody doesn't know a question that 7-year-olds are answering, you can kind of
it's
have good-natured fun with them.
Yeah, you're an adult, so it's okay, and you thought you could win. That's why you came here. So there's a little bit of you signed yourself up for
this was going to be easy.
Yeah.
And now here's a little behind-the-scenes thing.
Okay.
So I had a thing in my ear because the shows were timed to fit So like I had a little thing in my ear, and so they were timing each segment for where to put the commercials in.
Mm-hmm.
So they might say to me, "Hey Jeff, ask the question, but go to commercial before you reveal the answer." So
Okay.
that was in the early days. By the time year 6 rolled around, they'd be in my ear going, "Look at the sweat stains on this fatty over here." You know, holy cow, this guy, look at the pit stains on this.
And you're just-
and I'm 2 feet away from the guy talking to him, and they're in my ear just, you know, you're like, "Stop it."
Yeah. Trying to get you to crack.
Yeah. Oh, they're trying to make me laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, comedy. I mean, I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I feel like it's changed a lot over the last couple of decades. Even just the climate around it, right? Just what it's okay to say, what isn't okay to say. And I know it's like a weird issue that is kind of, it can be looked at like this or that. I feel like it would make it more challenging sometimes, because sometimes jokes are offensive, but maybe that's why it's funny.
Yeah, I was going to say. They
Right?
might be
It's like
offensive,
that was the point.
but maybe they're really funny. Yeah.
But yeah, so
But
is it
you know
just
what I
is it
think-
a dance that you do?
Well, I like, even over the course of my career, like, because I did a lot of relationship material, and so like 20 years ago, I might have done something. Go, why do women do this, but guys do this? Then you'd have people going, well, I'm a woman and I don't do that, or I'm a guy and I don't do that. So what I would do, I went, you know, I will do this, but then my wife will turn around and do that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm not make it general. It's me and my wife. But it's almost gotten to the point now, and probably younger comics don't feel like this, but for the guy that's been doing it, it's not as much fun as it used to be, because I think people don't laugh at themselves as easily as they used to.
Okay, yeah.
And here's my theory. I think we're all idiots.
Yeah.
Nobody has life figured out. I mean, I don't care who you are. Nobody has it figured out. Every day, every one of us is coming to 1,000 forks in the road, and using our best guess, we're going left or right. We don't have it figured out, but we kind of live in an age where everybody has to be right. So if you say something, then on social media, you're either wrong or right. You're getting attacked. Well, when they have to be right, that means you have to be wrong. Well, nobody wants to engage in a conversation like that.
Yeah.
So what you do is you walk away. You shut down and you walk away. And we've lost any gray area.
In your perspective, how did we get here?
It's like everybody, with the internet, everybody got a voice,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether you were educated on the subject or not.
Right. It's not about people having, everyone being able to have a voice. It's some of these people are dumb.
Well,
That's it. In
well,
my opinion.
yeah, you're on telling people, you know, it's like anytime somebody tells me, anybody acts like they have God figured out, that's immediately a red flag to me.
What
Because
do you
I'm like,
mean by that, though? Like, give me an
well,
example.
it's like, I know you. You're an idiot. I saw you run over your trash can backing out of your driveway. If you can figure God out, then God's not that cool because you're an idiot. But we've kind of done that in every area of our lives, where people speak with authority on the internet on things they have no education or research about. And we've become a skimming society. And like I will say this, like critical thinking. I tell other comics this, and for those listening, when I say critical thinking, that doesn't mean being critical of something. It means thinking to the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. So like when you're writing comedy, the setup is the part with no payoff. There's no laugh in a setup. you have to have it to get to the point to where you get the laugh. And so I tell other comics, I'm like, if you're going to go to all the trouble to write the setup and then you get the laugh, while you're there, before you move to the next setup, look at it and go, is there another laugh here? Is there another laugh here? So that's critical thinking. Let me think it down another layer. Let me think it down. And just like Jim Gaffigan is a great example of that, where he can do a bit on Hot Pockets, or he can do 20 minutes on bacon.
Yeah.
You know, if I told you write me 20 funny minutes on bacon, you'd write
I'd
me
run out real quick.
20 seconds. But it's because he's just sat there and, well, as a society, we don't, and you know this in your business, we don't, if you're looking at a YouTube video and it's over 6 minutes now, somebody looks at it and goes, 30 minutes? Hell, I ain't watching that.
Are you like that?
Yeah, I'm kind of like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's like if a young comic asked me for advice, I said, I can give you advice on how to write a joke. I can give you advice on how to set up a thing. But as far as the way the business goes, like when I started, all I wanted to do was to be on Johnny Carson. But there were only 3 TV channels in the world. And if you were a comedian on Johnny Carson, you were in the upper 1% of what you did. Mm-hmm. And it literally changed your life that night. Wow. I mean, I do it the next week. Casinos in Vegas are like, do you want a headline?
Really?
For no other reason than I made Johnny laugh and he called me to the couch.
Wow.
And so it was a career changer. And then you had records, you had albums, and then you had specials, you know. And, well, now nobody buys records.
Yeah.
Now nobody buys DVDs.
And you had platinum comedy albums.
Multiple. Yeah.
Which is an old idea at this point.
3 or 4 times
crazy
platinum.
to think about, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, like the first 2 I did, both of them have sold almost 4 million copies apiece.
That's insane.
Now, if you have a comedy record and it sold 50,000 copies, it would be a through-the-roof smash hit. So that's what I'm saying. The business has changed so much. I can't, if you start a comedy tomorrow and said, help me, I'm like, I can help you write jokes. I can't help you because now with the internet, everybody's got a slice of pie. Mm-hmm. So you get exposure, but it's not as big of a slice of the pie. 20 years ago, if you did a record, you were part of the 1%. Well, now
just breaking through and being able to do that, right? But now do you feel like it's kind of saturated in that way, or just if you're really talented and you're really good,
talented, you're still going to find your way to the top
eventually, right?
It's just a different path than the path that I had.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's probably in what you do. If you're good at a podcast, and you know. I love the stuff you do, but I listen to all kind of stuff. Well, through that, I'm able to judge these people are good, these people are not so good.
Right.
These people tell a good story, these people don't tell a good story.
Right.
You know, and I can't tell you how many true crime podcasts I've started that 10 minutes into the first episode, I'm like, I'm bailing. Too much of a commitment. This is not good. Well, it is a commitment.
It is.
Because I'm giving away my time.
Oh, yeah, totally.
To devote to.
And you're like racking your brain on some puzzle.
Yeah.
Right? Is it going to be worth it?
But when somebody's good at it, you're taking that journey with them to the point, you know, like, me and my daughters are texting each other at night about, did you hear the latest Up and Vanish? What do you think? What do you think about that? What do you? So it becomes not just your story, but you're sharing it with other people. Kind of like the whole Murdaugh thing became,
right?
You know, where everybody in the country's texting each other.
Oh yeah,
at night.
huge.
Yeah. So it's interesting. What did you think you were going to do?
At which stage?
Before you started this, because I know, when I listened to the thing on, and by the way, anybody out there, Term Podcaster is really good. It's a weird title, but it's really good. It's like how somebody ends up.
What would you call it?
Well, it made total
sense. Became podcaster?
It made total sense once I listened to it, but I'm like, What the heck does that mean? Turn podcaster. But so before you did it, where did you think you were going to land?
I didn't really know, but what I had pictured in my head was I had just viewed myself as a filmmaker, storyteller in that way. And I had been doing short films and stuff my whole life. So that was kind of part of my identity. And I felt like a failed filmmaker. And I decided one day that, hey, I'm really into true crime and this investigative journalism. How does one become that? Did they just decide one day that I want to do that? And I just thought, well, I want to do that, so I'm going to try. And I just listened to Serial, and I was blown away that I, could be that enthralled by an audio story. Because, my ADHD brain, I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I thought maybe if I could make a podcast, because I know how to edit, because I edited all my, music videos and stuff, I could do it for cheap. That would be a stepping stone, proof of concept to do this bigger film documentary idea I have. That's all it was to me. I didn't look at it as a career path or anything but hey, this is working, so maybe these Hollywood guys, whoever they are, however this happens, will take a shot on me to do a docuseries or a TV show or something.
All right, so since you started that,
mm-hmm.
has your dream of what you want to do changed?
No, I think that I added another layer to it.
Yeah.
I realized that, hey, this podcasting thing is kind of fun. The creative liberty I have is not to be taken for granted because even at the highest level of some HBO series, I'm going to take a backseat a little bit in the creative control, I would imagine, right?
Well, in my career, the thing I enjoyed the least, not the people,
mm-hmm.
but was the sitcom, because I had a sitcom for a few years in the mid-'90s, but they didn't even want me in the writing room. They were like, and I'm like, well, who knows? It's the Jeff Foxworthy show. Who knows Jeff Foxworthy?
Which is bizarre and hard to understand, but I totally get what you're saying.
But they were like, I'm like, who knows Jeff Foxworthy better than Jeff Foxworthy?
Well, not Jeff Foxworthy.
It was me writing about me that made you give me the show.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, this is TV, and
mm-hmm.
so, then I get the script on Monday and I'm reading it going, oh, this is not good. I wouldn't say this on stage. And
yeah.
So that was the least fun part. But like for you, see, I think you have to be, your game has to be better to do a podcast, to make somebody follow a story on a podcast.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, it's like with me as a comic, if I don't have the benefit of you seeing me, or making it look real pretty,
mm-hmm.
or me raising an eyebrow and doing a funny face, if you can't see me, if I just have to make you laugh with my words, I got to work harder.
Yes, that's actually a great example. Your comedy audio, you can't lean on that visual component of
not at all.
Just
the physical,
silence
the
and
physical
just an expression
element
or something,
of it.
right?
Even what I might be doing on stage, because I was always kind of physical and would roll on the floor. And you're not doing that on a record.
Yeah,
you're not doing that on the radio.
So did you sharpen your tools from that? You think?
I think so.
I think so
because
too.
There were, and so like you're saying, it was just a different thing.
Uh-huh.
I learned to do comedy in a lot of different forms.
Okay.
Like you had the live stand-up show where I could raise the eyebrow, do the funny face, and run around in a circle.
Yeah.
But then you'd have the element where you were making a recording where you couldn't do those things. Then I wrote like 20-something books. Well, reading it is totally different than saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you might be a redneck jokes, the calendars, those
they read differently, I'm sure.
They do. There's some that are funny to read that don't work as well when you try to say them, and vice versa. And and then I invented a game on the spot. Like we were at Thanksgiving and the kids, I say kids, they were all in their 20s, but they were playing Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
Well, their grandparents were there and their aunts and uncles. And I'm like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
You've got to go to the basement, or somebody's going to have a stroke.
We know where this
at
goes.
the kitchen table. But literally, I was sitting there, almost probably like you with the podcast, and I'm going, all right, well, why can't you have a funny game that you could play in front of your aunts and uncles?
Smart.
And I always keep stacks of note cards, and I went in my office, and I got like 500 note cards, and I literally sat there that night while visiting with people, and I wrote 500 punchlines. 500
things that night
that sound funny. They things like, I have one like that, but mine's green. I have mold in my crawl space.
Yeah,
it sounds funny. What does it mean?
Yeah, let's expand.
I don't think I would touch that. Whatever. And so I wrote 500 punchlines, and then I thought, all right, what does everybody have in common? Everybody's family's crazy. Mm-hmm. So why don't you write 100 setups about families?
Okay.
So the setup might be right before we walked down the aisle, Daddy leaned over to me and whispered blank. So everybody at the card has 7 punchlines, and they hear the setup, and they look through their punchlines, and they go, this will get the biggest laugh. So literally in a day and a half, I made a game. And it was the easy, you could learn to play it in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But it made people laugh.
Yeah.
And I sat the family, cousins, grandparents down at the table and handed out these note cards and said, here's how you play it. Mm-hmm. And I just recorded them.
That's amazing.
And they're laughing.
Yeah.
Well, it ended up becoming the #1 game on Amazon. And I thought, all right, it's family, relative insanity is the name of the game. So, but when I sat back, later I went, oh, well, that's cool. That's another way to make people laugh that I didn't know how to. I knew how to do it in the written form. I knew how to do it in the film form, but I didn't know how to do it like in a game.
Yeah.
So, but it's like your storytelling. Well, there's just different avenues to tell stories.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, I didn't have the crutch of the visual element of a establishing shot or an expression on someone's face or a mood or tone in the lighting, stuff that I had gotten used to using to tell stories like that or just at all. And so I had to kind of learn how to do it without that and not feel like I'm beating you over the head to over describe what's happening where it feels like I'm trying to make up for that. But I think just throughout my career of telling stories that way, I got better at storytelling. And I think I had the ambition back then.
I think you got better at it over the course of Up and Vanished.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Like, so the guy at the newspaper there.
Dusty Vassy.
What you're doing, you're making us make a movie in our mind. Mm-hmm. And so you have to describe, whereas you're filming it, you don't necessarily have to describe Dusty very well, right?
Right. Yeah, you can see it yourself. Yeah.
But so there's elements of that. So it's actually pretty cool that you've learned an entirely different skill set all under that banner of storytelling.
It is. And I think had I not, I don't think I had the ambition back then, but I don't think I had the chops really to go do some bigger TV thing that I wanted to do. Just looking back at the way, how I would craft a story back then, I've had to do it in different ways where now when I think visually or I have the opportunity to, I'm thinking way differently about it. And there's some sort of nuance to just the backbone of a story that I strengthened in just practicing.
Yeah, you've got more tools in your tool belt now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever think about that as you're doing a podcast going, all right, if I was to turn this into a mini series or a movie, how would I do it?
I still think very much visually.
Yeah.
And, the second I put out a podcast, back when I was releasing Up and Vanished season 1 every week, I was making them week to week, which was really insane. And
it's not like you have this place either.
No.
It's you doing.
It was me up till
with your grandma making you cookies, right?
Yes, exactly. And just broke as a joke and involved in some murder story that everyone's talking about. It was weird times, but I would, upload the episode and the next morning I get like 3 hours of sleep and I would listen to it one time once it was already published because I knew that it was too late now.
Did you hate
However I felt about it,
Let me
too
ask
late.
you this. Did you hate the sound of your own voice?
I did in the very beginning. I did.
To this day, like if I go back, like I can't watch myself.
I don't like it either, really.
But if I go back and listen to myself, I just cringe.
Oh man!
Like I used to do the Tonight Show, which you would film it in L.A. at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife we'd go to have dinner, and then we'd come home, and people on the East Coast would see it, and they would call, and then it would become West Coast time. Mm-hmm. And I could watch the whole thing, the monologue, and when it came part for me to go, I would get up and walk out of the room and just be like in the bathroom.
Why is that, though?
Yelling at my wife. Tell me when it's over.
Yeah.
Because I hated the way I sounded. I hated the way I acted things out. I hated the whole thing. And she's like, "It's good. Come back in here." I'm like, "No, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it."
Yeah.
So having to be your own critique of yourself, that had to be hard.
It was. And I listened to it once and then never again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would remember, I wouldn't need a reminder of what I would change or didn't like about that. Yeah. I knew that I didn't like the way I said that or whatever.
So do you think, would you ever not do this? Like I said, even though I've gotten to do the other things, mm-hmm. I would always do stand-up.
Would I ever not make podcasts?
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say. I feel like if I were to answer it, just gun to the head here, I'll probably always make podcasts. To a degree.
Because you kind of taught your brain to work that way a little bit.
Yeah, and even if I went off on some amazing film career stint, which is still just a dream of mine, I might do that for a decade and say, you know what? I'm going to make a podcast again.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's always in the cards, and it's something I've fell in love with, and I also respect because it's given me so many opportunities to do anything else but a podcast, right? So I respect it in that way.
Podcasts are kind of intimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In that, if I'm going to watch your film, I've got to go to the theater, or worst case, I got to sit in my living room. But like when somebody's listening to you, they're listening to you when they're getting out of the shower. They're listening to you when they're laying in the bed. They're listening to you while they're making dinner. There's kind of when you get involved in a podcast, there's an intimacy to it,
Did you feel like you knew me in some way?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like, because you were pretty honest up front. It's like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think this is a good story. So, the creative in me is rooting for you. I always tell my kids, I said, if your life's going to be cool, you need a few hold your nose and jump moments.
Yeah.
Where you don't know what's going to happen. I quit IBM to be a comic.
Which is wild.
And my mother's first question was, "Are you on the dope?" Whatever the dope
not
is.
just dope. That dope. Yeah.
But, and I went, I think the first year I did comedy, I did 406 shows and made $8,300. But there was never a moment that I thought, oh, I made a mistake, or I wish I hadn't done this, or I should have stayed. Did you ever have a moment where you were going, maybe I shouldn't have done this?
I mean, small things here and there. Nothing that would ever change me.
You were driving back and forth a lot.
Oh, yeah. I was driving back and forth. I mean, I would change stuff in hindsight, but I never felt regret of anything. The scariest thought I've ever had is, what if I didn't make a podcast? What if I was too scared? I was too scared, but I just did it anyways. Doesn't mean I didn't overcome my fear. I was still scared. I just did it. Have you ever thought about what if I didn't quit IBM?
Yes. You know what kind of...
That's a scary thought to me.
What gave me... I was sitting... Because I was weighing it back and forth. And, I mean, it was a good job.
Right.
They had health benefits, had dental.
There's a risk.
But I knew I loved doing... And I was going around town at night doing stand-up. And I knew I loved doing stand-up. And I was sitting in the break room. This was like a blessing from God. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in the break room by myself one afternoon, and there's three, and I'm 24. and there's 3 like guys in their 60s sitting at a table across the break room. And I'm just listening to them. It's late in the afternoon, and one of them goes, you know, I wish I'd have bought a hardware store. I always dreamed about having a hardware store. I think I would have loved to have had a hardware store. Mm-hmm. And one of the other guys, well, yeah, I wish I'd have done. And I thought, I can just see it now. I thought, I do not want to be sitting in this break room when I'm 62 years old going, I wish I had tried to be a comedian. Now, did I have any idea that, you know, ignorance is bliss? I didn't know the odds stacked against me. Mm-hmm. But I thought I might get away with it for a few years, and then I would have a cool story to tell my grandkids to go, hey, your grandpa was a comedian for a few years. But it was a hold your nose and jump moment. You had no idea what was going to happen. And we kind of live in a world where people always say, well, you need to follow your passion. You need to follow your passion. I've evolved on that because sometimes people have passions for things that they're not good at.
Yeah.
Like,
don't tell them that. Yeah, tell them to pivot. Yeah.
I love music. I can't sing worth a crap, and I can't play an instrument. So maybe instead of following your passion, you ask people, what are you good at?
Yeah.
What are you good at? Well, since the time I was a kid, I could always make people laugh.
Yeah.
To the point, I can't even take credit for it because I don't know why I can do it.
Yeah.
You could say to me, hey, I've got a T-shirt company and I need 50 shirts about home security. And I could literally go in the corner with a pad and in 20 minutes I'd bring you back 50 T-shirts.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know why I can do that.
Yeah, you just can.
I can
always have been.
I can just do that. So
yep.
I can't even take any ego in it because. But there's different when you're good at something, mm-hmm. and you're a storyteller. You know, you said that in term podcast. That's what I do well. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with stories.
That's all I know, really.
Yeah, but you can do it literally in a lot of different ways. You can do it as a filmmaker. You can do it as a podcaster. You can do it in the written form.
Yep.
Just like I can do what I do in a lot of different ways. And it's kind of fun to explore a different way to do it sometimes.
It feels fresh again. It feels, the challenge is refreshing sometimes.
Like, I thought I hated TV from the sitcom experience.
Right.
And then a few years later, when we were doing the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, they said, hey, would you like to do a sketch show, like a Saturday Night Live? And I loved it. When I could walk in and go, hey, I got an idea. I want to weigh 400 pounds and have Elvis sideburns. And,
right.
And they were like, yeah, let's do it.
And you can make that happen.
And so I thought I hated television. What I hated was playing somebody else's idea of who Jeff Foxworthy was.
Yeah.
And I went on to enjoy a lot of things, you know, fifth grader and a lot of things. But, yeah.
When you made that leap from IBM and into comedy, you didn't know what level of success you would achieve or even probably could achieve. So that clearly wasn't the tipping point for you, right? I think some people get that confused, right?
I thought I could be good at it.
Right. You knew that part.
Now,
but
here's the thing. I only knew Atlanta. So I could look at all the 8x10s on the wall of the Punchline in Atlanta, and out of the 500 pictures there, I would say, hey, I'm not the best one, but I might be number 15 right now.
But you're on the list.
But I'm on the list, and out of these 500, I know where I rank. The problem came is then I would go to Chicago, and there would be 500 pictures up that I'd never seen before.
Right.
Then I go to New York, and there were 1,000 more I'd never seen. Then I go to L.A., and I'm like, holy hell, I had no idea this many people were trying to do that. But I think the advantage of having a job is I had a work ethic. I always worked at it. I would tape my show. I'd come back. I'd listen to it. I'd make notes. My wife, bless her heart, would go around the country and sit in the back of the club with a notepad and go, this is fuzzy. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so I was always working at it because I knew one day the bottom would fall out and I had to be above the cut line when the bottom fell out.
What's that mean for you?
What do you
Did
mean?
the bottom fall out?
Well, I knew the comedy club boom.
Oh, I see.
was going to be, nothing lasts forever.
Sure.
And so I didn't want to be calling a club in Minnesota and going, hey, you don't know me. And so I would drive to Minnesota and do it, and they go, oh, Jeff's funny.
That's smart.
Jeff's funny. So when the bottom falls out, they'll still book Jeff. I didn't know back then that I would ever get out of the club days. I just knew I enjoyed it. I knew the first minute and a half I did it, I'm like, oh, this is what I was born to do.
Yeah.
I was scared to death, but
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I found my purpose. It's like the old Mark Twain thing, 2 most important days of your life, the day you were born and the day you figure out why.
Right. So true.
And I was
Holds
like,
up.
literally, oh, this is why I was born. This is what I'm good at.
I want to make a strange pivot here.
Please, because we're not even talking about true crime podcasts.
Well, we can talk about whatever we want. But
Okay.
I heard that you wanted to talk about the JFK assassination
Well,
in some way, shape, or form.
so my daughter was asking me, how did I get interested in this kind of stuff? And I said, well, I think it probably began with the JFK assassination. And again, kind of the same. That's probably true crime. It's like,
Well, it's definitely true crime.
but
Who did it?
And maybe
Who did it?
Maybe it's part of my job is that skepticism. Mm-hmm. It's but I mean,
Of the official narrative kind of thing?
yeah, it just stinks. It doesn't smell right. And I feel bad for young people today because I think there was a time for us older people that somebody was telling us the truth about some things.
Right.
At least a few things.
But they took it to the grave or what?
Well, I don't know. My mom's 87 now, and I told my brother not long ago, I said, if you live long enough, you'll find out a lot of stuff about your family. Because your aunts and uncles would just, your cousin Stevie was born out of wedlock. I was like, no, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
now I do.
Hey, Stevie.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Yeah.
But like young people now have been lied to their whole lives.
Do you feel
Like
that way?
just as an experiment the other night.
By their parents or what?
By everybody.
Everybody.
Did you ever watch the Vietnam War by Burns?
Ken Burns?
Ken Burns.
I have not seen that, no.
You need to go watch it because it's Lyndon Johnson sitting in a meeting going, all right, tonight we're going to load up 400 planes and we're bombing the piss out of Hanoi tonight. And then he would go on TV, my fellow Americans, there is no bombing going on in Vietnam. And you're like, oh my God,
what
he's
is
just,
that?
he's looking at you in the eyes and lying to you.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what was the point. The other night on stage, I asked the crowd, I go, how many people trust your government? Not one people raised their hand. I said, how many people trust the media? Not one person raised their hand. Like, how many people trust advertising? And I'm like, what does that say about us?
But we used to, didn't we?
As human beings.
Did you trust the media when you were growing up?
I did.
Right.
I thought Walter Cronkite was telling me the truth.
Was it different back then, or do we know too much now, or?
I think it's maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like my farm is down near Callaway Gardens. Well, the older generation of the Callaway family, Franklin Roosevelt, FDR would come down to
Some of the little White Houses
to Warm
down there?
Springs.
Yeah.
Down there. Well, he would hang out with the Callaway family. And I was talking to people down there that were saying, oh, yeah, when he would come down here for dinner, the Secret Service guys would have to pick him up out of the car and carry him up the stairs, and this was the chair that he sat in because he had polio. He couldn't. But the American public didn't know he had polio.
How did they pull that off?
How did they pull that off?
I mean,
He was president for 4 terms. I mean, how did they pull that
ridiculous.
off?
yeah, we believed everything back then.
Yeah. But now, like watching that thing with Johnson, I'm like, hell, they've always been lying to us.
Yeah, right. Maybe that hasn't changed. We know more now. Also, there's more ways to find that out, I think.
Yeah, there are. But what does that do to us as human beings when... So who do you trust?
Like the distrust, you mean?
Yeah, who do you trust? You know the media's lying to you. You know advertising's lying to you because advertising told you, hey, if you'd get this car, you'd be happy. And now you got the car and you're not any happier than you were.
Yeah, I just don't trust the media, I think, at this point. And I mean, I think for some people that might be a lot harder because maybe they grew up trusting it and it's hard to let go of. But I think with what I do, I couldn't blindly trust that.
Do you
I
trust law enforcement?
What do you think?
Okay, so what does that do to us as human beings?
I wish I did.
But which makes us, and maybe that's part of the appeal of true crime. Mm-hmm. So we are so hungry for the truth.
Yeah.
We're desperately hungry for the truth. Who did this?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what true crime gets at is we're going to find out who did this. And here's an element of truth in this.
Yeah.
And I think comedy's a little bit the same way. Is once you take away, and that's the danger of this political correct age that we're going through. And what I'm hoping is the pendulum's just swung.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is just a chapter in a
I don't know.
large book that has many more chapters that
I hope so.
Come around?
And maybe, the pendulum's too far this way and it needs to.
Sure.
But maybe not. I mean, but once you take away a comedian being able to tell the truth,
yeah,
there's no need for a comedian.
Yeah.
If I've got to tiptoe around, I did a thing on the last special. I said, when I was growing up, if you wanted a trophy, you had to finish in first place. Well, I had people go online and go, "You bastard! Your generation are the people that gave my generation the participation trophies." And I'm like, I wouldn't say I was.
That guy clearly also got a participation trophy.
Yeah, well, but I was stating a fact. In 1968, if you wanted a trophy, you had to finish in first place.
That is a fact.
That's a fact. That's the truth.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
That's the truth.
I'm with you.
And when you take away that,
yeah,
then the joke's gone.
Yeah.
And the joke is the comparative. If they're tag with first place. Were you in the league? Yeah. Here's a trophy.
Well, say if you go see a rated R movie, right? You might see some brief nudity or hear the F word, but you knew that going into it, right?
Yeah.
It's rated R. You go to a comedy show or you turn on a comedy set, you're intentionally there. No one's drug you here.
No.
You're saying, hey, I'm willing to participate in whatever this is to a degree.
Well,
no one made you watch it.
And if you can't laugh at yourself, it's like,
right.
Here's the truth about human beings. We're all wrong about something.
Uh-huh.
You're wrong about some idea you have. You're wrong about something. You're wrong about something. I'm wrong. And the truth is we're wrong about a lot of somethings.
Absolutely.
So if you will at least give yourself that grace to go, over the course of my life, I might change my mind about a lot of things. Now I don't have to be right.
Yeah.
And now you and I can talk. And I can listen to what you know and you can listen to what I know. And maybe it changes my opinion a little bit or it changes yours.
Yeah.
If you're willing to admit, hey, I don't know everything and I might be wrong about something.
Which is hard for some people. I mean, I think that no one likes being wrong. It's not usually fun. If you were to choose, hey, you have to be right or wrong, you'd probably choose right because it's just easier.
Yeah.
So no one wants to be wrong, but no one is always right.
Right. No one's always right.
Yeah. It's okay to be wrong too. I think that being wrong is how you get smarter.
Well, I was thinking about that, like as opposed to cases where people have been wrongfully convicted, and those make for interesting podcasts.
Absolutely.
But how do you eliminate the possibility of that happening? Is you have to do away with the justice system, which is not a good answer either, right?
Yeah, exactly. It needs some fixing.
So sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we're wrong on a small level. Sometimes we're wrong on a big level.
Yep.
But good Lord, I'm 65. There were ideas that I vehemently believed 40 years ago
Give me one.
that I've totally changed my mind on? Well, I just think I'm much more gray in areas than I used to be.
Okay.
I told my kids, I said, man, I miss my 30-year-old body, but I wouldn't trade my 60-year-old mind to get it back. There's just more gray. You know, everybody's going through something. Everybody's going through a struggle. Mm-hmm. Might be financial, it might be physical, it might be emotional. And so my whole life, I've tried to be like, you know what, just have grace with people because you don't know their story. And I think I learned that from working at a homeless mission.
Really?
I worked down at the Atlanta mission every week for 12 years.
So what did you learn in that process then?
Well, like the first guy ever, because I'm like, how do you get a job? That was kind of,
that's an easy just thought to have that's kind of not considerate.
Come on, quit being lazy, get a job.
Sure.
The first guy I met when I was down there, now you're talking about downtown Atlanta, 21-year-old white kid in the homeless mission. And my first thought is, dude, get a job. Seriously, stop. And his name was Jason. And we sitting down there at the mission having lunch. And I asked him his story. I'm like, Jason, what's your story? I got, like you, I like
more
stories.
like, what's your excuse is what your vibe was probably.
Yeah, that's the implied, but it's the same. What's your story? How do you end up here? And he goes, well, you know, it was me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. And when I was 13, my mom killed herself.
Wow.
He said, 2 years after that, my brother killed himself.
Jeez.
He said, so it was me and my dad for a bunch of years. And then my second year of college, my dad killed himself. And he said, to be honest with you, I got to the point where I could not hurt anymore. So I dropped out of school and started smoking crack.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, holy hell, I would have started smoking crack too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you smoke crack, you lose your job, you lose your apartment, you're on the street. Now, the cool end of the story was Jason has since got his nursing degree and he's been sober for almost 13 years.
Oh, wow.
But that's an interesting story. So you think, you know, I in taking the time to learn somebody's story, I'm like, holy hell, I was totally wrong about everybody on the street.
Yeah.
And the more people I met on the street, it wasn't always the case. I mean, sometimes it was mental illness.
Sure.
But almost every one of them, something really bad had happened to them young. Sexual, physical, emotional abuse. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't handle the pain of it, so they started numbing either with alcohol or drugs, and you're not employable.
Right.
When you're an addict. And so really the addiction's the symptom.
Yeah.
It's the hurt that started the whole thing. But that's, you know, once you start learning that, you're like, oh, hell, I was wrong about you. I was wrong about you. So I think we have to be open to the fact that we don't know everything.
Is this being consciously considerate?
Yeah.
Like, hey, like, because you don't literally know.
You have no idea.
Right.
And you don't want to be naive, but I think you do have to give people at least a chance to learn their story, man.
Yeah. Or you're just making assumptions.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, I remember being a kid in Hapeville, where I grew up. Nobody had much money, but we always had really good baseball.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, and I won't even say the name of the school because you'll know it, but we went to play one of the private schools in Atlanta. And when we got off the bus, they were making fun of our uniforms because we had like old crappy uniforms.
Oh, like just like they weren't like new and nice or something?
No, they were kind of old and beat up.
That sucks, yeah.
But I remember them making fun of us. And I remember being a, 14, 15-year-old kid thinking, you don't know anything about me. You know nothing about me. You're just, well, now, because I've been successful at what I do, people think, oh, you're rich.
Is that annoying?
You're this. And I'm like, no, same guy, different shirt.
Yeah.
Same guy I was at 15. better shirt. Better shirt.
Better threads. Yeah. I think some people aren't like that. The good ones are. I think the good ones don't change. I think some people change negatively sometimes throughout success or whatever. And I think it's just kind of a cop-out viewpoint to make assumptions like, oh, you're rich. And I was like, I don't know anything, right? I don't like that about myself, right? So this has been like 10 years ago, but I was doing an interview and a lady said to me, okay, you do stand up, you host TV shows, you do award shows, you write books, you paint. Which one are you? And I went, okay, that's a weird question. and I said, well, those are all things that I do, and I love what I do. I don't want to do anything else. I love what I do. But who I am is I'm a husband, and I'm a father, and I'm a brother, and I'm a son, and I'm an uncle. And I said, so through the course of my life, hopefully that what I do changes many times, because that's interesting. Yeah.
But what I do and who I am are not the same thing. And I think sometimes the people that change with that success is they lose that narrative. What they do becomes their identity, and it's not going to last forever.
Right. That's a scary place to fall into, because if it gets harder, it gets a lot harder.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's, somebody's told me this a long time ago. They said there's 5 stages to be in the entertainment business, which you and I are both in. It's, who's Jeff Foxworthy? Get me Jeff Foxworthy. Get me somebody like Jeff Foxworthy. Whatever happened to Jeff Foxworthy? Who's Jeff Foxworthy? But if you think about
you go full circle, baby. Yep.
That's it. That's it.
And you hope to get at least 2 or 3 of those at one point.
It doesn't last long, Kenny Rogers said to me, he said, if your career's good, it's like a lava lamp. He goes, you heat up for a little bit, and then you go away and cool down. Then you come back up and heat up again.
Yeah.
Because if you stay in that bright light too long, it'll kill you.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, do you find creatively, like when I look back at the busiest parts of my career, I didn't really enjoy them because I was... Yeah. And you're probably in that right now.
I've had some miserable times.
You don't have time to smell the roses right now.
I think I've been able to get to a point where I finally can a little bit.
Good.
I think it gets better than what it is now, but I had to consciously look in the mirror and say a couple of years ago, holy shit, man, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Like, seriously. And I didn't even know.
Payne has become a company.
Right. When? How? What? Also, where are all my old friends?
Now, do you find creatively sometimes? Yeah, where are my old friends?
Yeah.
And creatively, sometimes your tank just runs out.
Absolutely. Yeah. That spark doesn't stay the same forever, but nothing does. It's like even if you had a restaurant, every single meal isn't going to be the exact 5.0 stars. It might be a 4.7, 4.6.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a 4 is your floor. But yeah, I learned that I can't really...
And it might be the KFC drive-through.
Right, and that's a big hit or miss. Yeah. But when it hits...
it hits
That's big. What keeps you coming back, though.
Yeah,
right?
baby.
Exactly. So they're good for it eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a Butterfinger. You might get 2 or 3 stale ones at the gas station.
Right.
But when you get that fresh Butterfinger...
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Or a Mentos, really, because those, I think they just really don't pull those ever, I think.
No, the stale ones,
I mean, it'll chip your tooth.
But when you get a good pack.
Like a freshie? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Out the factory?
Tingling in your nether region.
Oh, yeah, it reminds you of why you do this.
Yeah. You do realize we're just 2 really weird guys having a conversation right now.
Yeah, I think so. Hope this works.
Oh, me too.
Oh, yeah. I kind of always wanted to do that, though. I mean, I think I didn't have the chops for it years ago, but I do so much serious stuff that there's not a lot of room for some of the other, darker humor elements to things, and just to actual human experience of this stuff, because it may look like I'm making it about myself, or I'm not treating it with the right amount of sensitivity, all things that are kind of, creatively limitations, but also things that I am obligated to do to a degree, to do this respectfully. And so I think that just it's liberating for me to be able to have real life conversations with other creators and peers and people I look up to like yourself, because it just humanizes everything and takes some of the mystique away from even who I am and what I'm doing, because it's just not as crazy as you think it is. It's just some real simple shit.
Do you ever have the thought, if I could do this, pretty much anybody could do this?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I think about what I do. I'm like, yeah, if you're willing to spend a lot of time driving in your car and, be away from home and sleep in hotel, you can do this. Because I'm nothing special. I'm an idiot. I'm 2 decisions from drywalling, so
right.
Not that there's anything, I've drywalled a lot, but you see behind the curtain and it's like, A, we got lucky.
Yeah.
And B, it's really cool because you're getting to do something creative.
Yeah.
But it ain't special.
Back to JFK. Do you think Lee Harvey Oswald is the shooter and the sole shooter?
No and no.
Okay.
Do you?
I think so. I think he is.
Really? Oh my God! Now we've got a whole other episode.
Now I'm just saying. I think that mostly conspiracy theories are fun. They are, because it's like, what if, right? And it's crazy, but I think it's a little bit human nature when something really bad happens to want to have some bigger, grander explanation for why it happened. It can't just be as simple as this guy had an amazing shot from far away and it killed the president and it's just him. Can't be, right? But what if it was? Like you brought up sometimes where, Ronald Reagan, there was an assassination attempt against him. 0 conspiracy theories. Why? Because he survived it. But if you want to talk about some grassy knoll stuff, there's some oddities. There are. Yeah. And, I think if there is a conspiracy theory, which I don't know definitively anything, I think there's probably some cover up.
Somebody goes, all right, Payne, I'm going to tell you the truth, but you got to keep this just between you and me. Don't be going on your dang podcast and telling people everything.
You can trust me. Yeah.
Yeah. The grassy knoll, the head movement.
Mm-hmm. Like the guy back there who was.
I'm a hunter.
Mm-hmm.
His head goes back.
So let's say that that's true. What does it mean? Because the biggest thing with conspiracies is like, okay,
what changes everything?
Well, what does it mean that we did this to him, like our own government?
Not necessarily.
Okay, just so there was 2 shooters.
But it means that we weren't told the truth.
Okay, and then it's like, okay, well, why would you hide that? Because why would you hide it if there was not just two people who...
Okay, but, all right. Why would they hide UFO stuff?
I think because the implications are huge.
We're all going to run out. Run.
Right, which I hate that take too. But I think there's probably some people who
you can't handle the truth.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, I feel like, but also I think Gen Z doesn't give a shit about any of that.
No,
they're like, cool. We already thought that was true anyway.
Yeah.
So I think if there's ever been a good time to tell us the truth on UFOs and aliens, it's right now. Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a cover up, it has to do with secrets they didn't want to get out about other things the government was doing that looked bad, that were wrapped up into JFK and maybe his assassination, but not that they're covering for some other shooter per se.
Okay.
But if you think otherwise,
I mean,
I could be convinced.
We may have to do a whole episode. Now I got to go back and brush up.
Do you have your notes? Yeah,
stuff.
This is a whole thing, right?
It is a whole thing. Well, the bullet, I've spent a lifetime hunting. Never seen a bullet. Bullets don't look like that when they hit something, especially when they go through multiple body parts.
What did it look like?
The magic bullet. There's no
untouched, right?
It's like you carefully took white gloves and pulled it out of the cartridge casing. There's not a dent on it. Bullets look like deformed mushrooms when they hit things, especially going through wrist bones.
Right, thing explodes, right?
Yeah,
pretty
they
much.
don't look like that. So why is that sitting on a stretcher in pristine shape?
I don't know.
It's to tie the deed to the gun in the window. And there's no doubt about it because I've got the rifling on the bullet and it matches the gun in the window, which was where Lee was. That somebody really wants you to tie that bullet to that gun.
It is inconvenient, too, that Oswald was killed.
In police headquarters by a guy that walked right up to him.
Yeah.
Oswald also wasn't taking credit for it, as most people would be proud of what they had pulled off.
That's a good point.
He's saying from the beginning, I'm a patsy. I'm a patsy.
We should poll the audience here and see if they want a round 2 with us at some point where we dig in deep.
I have to go back and study because it's been years
I'll study too, and I'll have a counter argument. But also, like, I think that there are things like that I'd like to go deeper into that I probably wouldn't have an answer for.
Well, I will tell you this, like, when I went and listened to the MLK tapes, it's one of my favorite podcasts ever.
Awesome.
Because I learned so much.
Yeah.
See, you need to make that, and you can cut this out if it's not a good business plan.
You're fine.
If that was a docuseries, it would be a national hit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the goal.
You have generations that do not know this story.
You're right.
And I remember my mom telling me at breakfast that Martin Luther King was killed. I remember the day.
Wow.
So, and I didn't know all the stuff in this story. So I'm like, why is Kennedy talked about so much, but not this?
Yeah.
And I think MLK is a more fascinating, if you want to talk about a cover-up. Now, do you think James Earl Ray was the lone gunman in MLK?
Again, there's no smoking gun that points me to the fact that he isn't.
Oh, really?
I mean,
you changed my mind.
I think that it's one of those things where
Payne is a damn fool.
But
Payne is a damn fool.
Presenting the oddities and the facts as they are.
And that didn't...
I think I went down that, and then I eventually found myself kind of going back a little bit and saying, hey, is this one of those things again where it just feels better for it to be bigger than it is? I could be wrong on that too. Maybe I'm going too far back the other direction. But if it was so easy to figure out, then we wouldn't be talking about it at all, right? It wouldn't even be a debate. So
yeah.
You got to remember too, like the other side where it's like, okay, well, it wasn't convincing the other way either,
right?
Necessarily, or if
it wasn't.
So I don't know. I mean, I think that all the research he did too was compelling to me, opened my eyes on how I looked at the whole thing. But then
it did me as well.
Yeah, it's kind of, but I didn't. I could see how and why and all that stuff, but I'd never felt fully convinced that it was definitively, more than that, than what we know.
But isn't that kind of sad? So now we have JFK and now we have MLK. Mm-hmm. And basically what you're saying is, we're never going to know the truth.
And I hate that, but...
So it goes back to my premise. It's been a long time, though, right? It's been to my premise of why we are attracted to these things, because we are so stinking hungry to know the truth about something. We don't trust our government. Yeah. We don't trust our media. We don't... And it's like, just tell me the truth. I can deal with it.
Right.
Just tell me the truth.
I don't want to be...
Was Hoover that corrupt? I can deal
probably,
with it.
But just confirm it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're starving for the truth.
Yeah. I always tell my mom and dad just to, from being kind of in media, which is, I mean, not necessarily the news media, but investigative reporting is kind of close to that. I changed my perspective on how to look at the news and whether to trust it blindly like that at all, obviously. And so I always tell my parents, like, hey, like, take that with a grain of salt, Well, they went to Burning Man, which is wild, for the first time ever.
Your mom and dad.
My mom and dad. It's weird even saying this right now. Went to Burning Man. And I'm like, okay, what world am I living in? But this year it got super rainy and super muddy. And my mom calls and leaves me a voicemail and says, hey, just want to let you know we're here safe. I heard we made it on the news. It's
the whole
not as
thing
bad
was
as what they're saying, though.
It was like a goat rope, right? I mean,
she was saying, like, it wasn't as bad as they're making it look. And I was like, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because they're really making it look like that on TikTok even.
Yeah.
And my parents were having more fun.
Yeah.
They were like, it was 2 extra days.
It's like 100,000 people trapped in the desert.
At a party.
Yeah.
Yeah. They wanted to be there.
I'm going to have to do a bit about your parents going to Burning
Please
Man.
do. Please do. Because it is a bit. It writes itself. Yeah. Also, I would never want to go there with them.
No.
I would go, but I don't want to see my mom.
You don't want to see
when
your
I
mom.
see whatever else I see there.
No, you don't.
I also don't want to see any of that, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Hurt your head a little bit.
Well, but at the end of the day, it's like for a comic, what you're trying to do is, and one of I've been so blessed that I've gotten to see the country because as a little kid, I never went anywhere. On vacation, we went to South Carolina and stayed in my grandmother's trailer on that farm for 2 weeks. That was I'd never been anywhere. Through comedy, I've been to all 50 states and just about all over the world. But what you realize is the scenery changes and the accents change, but people are the same.
They are.
We're even so politically divided in this country, but I think you could take somebody at either end of the political spectrum and sit them down one-on-one and say, what do you want out of life? And hey, I want to be able to afford a home. I want to be able to go to the doctor. I want to be able to take care of my children. I want to be able to buy groceries. I bet 85% of what we want, it's the same.
Yeah.
At both ends of the political spectrum. Now, we don't choose to celebrate the 85% that we share the same. We want to yell at each other about the 15% where we're different. But for a comic, that's all I've got. If I go on stage in Oregon, my accent's different. I grew up in a different looking place. But I'm looking for what do you and I have in common? And what those things are is our thoughts, what we say, our family. I'm looking for that connection. I think that's what podcasts are. It's that connection. As human beings, we're hungry for that.
Yeah.
We want to be part of a tribe. We want to be told the truth.
So I
think you do a service to people in what you do.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're digging for the truth.
Right.
Don't always get there, but you're digging for it, which is all people want.
There was a live show for Up and Vanish that we did in Atlanta years ago. I think this was probably 2017. And I think it was my first live show. And I learned after the show that, oh my God, you missed it. Jeff Foxworthy was here sitting near my grandma. And I was like, what? So you stole the show?
No, I didn't. I'm
kidding.
But I'm sitting in the back just listening and enjoying it. I like learning.
Well, this has been a blast, man. I appreciate you coming out here.
I'm not sure what we talked about. I just enjoyed the talk.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I think we did something. Either way, it's going on YouTube.
Kind of like my wedding night. I'm not sure what it did, but we did something.
We got married, though.
I don't know if it was right or wrong, but we did something.
I felt good, though. I appreciate you coming out here, too.
Well, no, I just admire what you do. And I admire the way you got into it. To me, people that are creative, most of them are creative in more than one area of their life. But we're kind of weirdos a little bit. And so I kind of think creatives kind of understand each other a little bit. Kind of like comics. It's funny, like when you start out, we're all mean to each other because everybody's trying to get into
Oh, yeah.
But once you've done it a while, we're all nice to each other because it's like, you know.
Right, exactly.
You know the price that goes with this.
Mm-hmm. Now we feel like we can confide in each other a little bit, commiserate on a couple of those things that no one else
But
understands.
I like to see, I love this state, so I like to see somebody from my home state be successful. And it's an unusual career path to just hold your nose and jump, which is what you did, and try something totally new, and it worked. Mm-hmm. And now you look back and go, oh my gosh, like you said, what if I hadn't done this?
Yeah, that's the scariest thought to me.
What if I hadn't done this?
Yeah, it's not what I would change, is what if I didn't do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
So
it
for
means a lot
everybody
coming from you.
listening, you need that moment in your life. Hold your nose and jump.
But if you really suck at singing, maybe.
If you suck at it, don't do it. But if it's your gift, if you're good at it,
Yeah.
go for it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you fail.
Yeah.
And I always told my kids, I said, I want you to fail a lot, because if you're failing, that means you're testing the boundaries of what you're capable of.
Absolutely.
So you're like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, if this didn't work, I was like, okay, well, I was on to the next thing.
Go do the next thing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cowboy cookies next time.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mike here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Death. If you enjoyed it, be sure to listen next week for a brand new conversation between Payne and another very special guest. Thank you. Talking to Death is a production of Tenderfoot TV and iHeartPodcasts, created and hosted by Payne Lindsey. For Tenderfoot TV, executive producers are Payne Lindsey and Donald Albright. Co-executive producer is Mike Rooney. For iHeartPodcasts, executive producers are Matt Frederick and Alex Williams, with original music by Makeup and Vanity Set. Additional production by Mike Rooney, Dylan Harrington, Sean Nerney, Dayton Cole, and Gustav Wild for Cogito. Production support by Tracy Kaplan, Mara Davis, and Trevor Young. Mixing and mastering by Cooper Skinner and Dayton Cole. Our cover art was created by Rob Sheridan. Check out our website, talkingtodeathpodcast.com.